Namaste and welcome to Namaste Let's Talk. In today's episode, we are diving into what it means to live in today's America, not just in temples and festivals, but in our civic duty as well. I am joined by Dr. Amod Surekha, a second-gen Hindu American who is deeply involved in civic advocacy. So, Dr. Amod, do you want to give us a little background about yourself and how did you get involved with civic advocacy and policies?
So I can tell you a little bit about where I was born, where I moved to, and so forth. That's the easy part. So I was born in Bombay, at that point called Bombay, now Mumbai. At age 2 months, moved to California. My dad was doing his residency in the field of physical medicine and rehabilitation at that time. I think we were in California for about 4 years, give or take, and then we moved to Peoria, Illinois, where I grew up from age 4.5 until almost 40 plus, I think. But in between that, I did my medical training also in Illinois, and then the year or the summer before my kids were supposed to start high school, we decided that it's time for us to move. So we chose to move to Georgia because my wife has a cousin who has twin boys that were 11 years younger than my twin boys to the exact day. So we thought it was fate and we made that move. And we've been there ever since for the past 8 years. That is where I live. In between all of that, my wife is a physician also. She and I both had our medical careers that we've been doing on the side of parenthood. And then along the way, and I think probably more so, it was when we reached Georgia, Georgia being such an important state politically in the United States. Both my wife and I got more involved with politics, but she perhaps to a lesser degree than myself. I've been busy, I've been learning, and I've been doing more year after year after year.
My next question for you is, many Hindu Americans feel disconnected from politics. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but the Indian community tends to be very ignorant or just disconnected. And from your perspective, why do you think that it's important that our community shows up and votes regardless of any party or any other factors?
Yeah, I think it also varies a lot with who we're talking about. If it is people like my parents who actually immigrated here, they grew up in Bharat, they actually know Indian politics far better than I do. They can keep up with that, and on top of that, learning the intricacies of US politics is probably a little bit of a challenge for one thing. By the same token, I think the longer people are here, they realize that we are here to stay in the United States, that laws will be important for us. And then when you get down to the next generation, myself, you being the next generation beyond that, not having lived the bulk of your life in India, this being the political realm that you know best, I think it becomes more and more obvious that this is more important though. The reason why it's important for anyone who does need a clarification is because the politicians and politics are what determine our lives, determine how we live our lives, how we can potentially grow, prosper, how our kids and eventually grandkids will do as well. So any way that we can influence that, because we also think that we as Hindu Americans have things to offer in the United States. I think we not only have the duty, but I think we should be very happy to add that to the melting pot of the United States at the same time.
As a second generation Hindu American, what does civic duty mean to you personally, and how do you connect it with the values that you have grown up with?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions,
Yes.
and you can, and we'll maybe answer that way. So I'll ask you to translate in 6 words or less. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. How would you translate that?
Everyone is my family and I'm a part of this family.
Love it. Dharma. Can you give me a definition in 6 words or less?
Dharma, so subjective. It's a way of living life, set principles.
Fair enough. Fair. So absolutely, it's the principles the ideas that we think are important, things that we feel that we're compelled to do. And if you put both of those two things together, if we think about if we really are trying to treat everyone as our family, if we really want to see everyone do well, and if you consider it our duty to do so, my argument is that how we can make those changes on a system-wide level in politics might have a far greater reach than what any of us can do as individuals, though. So if we can have a big part in electing good people, trying to do good things, I think that helps us be who we're supposed to be all that much better.
With the values, I absolutely agree. I think when you asked me the question, you gave me the answer of my question. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, when we say everybody's our family, and we living this in the United States, so that means the problems that people face or the challenges they go through in this country is also our problems, our challenges, and we have to address them. And one of the ways, and the easiest probably, is by participating in the local elections, state elections, federal elections, and trying to vote and make your voice reach up there.
And then even still, if you start talking about the national elections, and we're talking about the United States, which is a world superpower. So not only can our decisions influence those in the United States, but how much can we do in respect to poverty, war, education, rights of the disenfranchised throughout the world. We had my favorite phrase that I always used when I was with the youth at Seva International: with great power comes
great responsibility.
And that's part of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. I have noticed this personally also when people are even thinking of voting or are looking at politics and keeping up with what's happening. It's usually at the federal level. When they have to participate, it's also federal level. Why do you think that local or state level elections are also equally important, or maybe more important than the federal ones?
No, it's a great question, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they're equally important. More important, it's really hard to break all of those down, but if we take a look at the scope of what gets decided on a state level and a local level, I think that really brings that out. So for anyone who has gone to college, will be sending their kids to college, or will look forward to their grandkids going to college, details about funding for colleges, funding for financial aid in colleges, all of that is decided at a state level. When we start talking about education at the primary or secondary level, at high school, at elementary school, that's all local decisions made from school boards, which are very, very small elections, relatively speaking. When you start talking about how we live our lives in the United States, we can say, yes, there's freedom of religion, but there was a recent story where there was a family who had a oven in their household, and in this case, it turned out that there was a lack of knowledge that it's normal sometimes for Hindu Americans to have a controlled fire in their house, but firefighters came in all concerned. By the same token, there could also be municipalities where, not knowing this, they would be outlawing things that are common for our culture but not common for other cultures, though. And how we are allowed and can thrive in the United States is making sure that laws that are pertinent to us are there for us.
The only way they can be aware, as you said, they went to a house where there was a puja happening and they were worried because they're not used to the idea of controlled fire. If we don't educate them, or if we're not there, they will not know. And how can we tell them? It's when we participate as well along, and then obviously when you are participating in those local elections, you do have, if not you, but someone who's representing you will also have a conversation with the people who are there. And then that's the way you can tell them. It may sound a little funny that this happened, but it could be a very serious issue also.
No doubt. Agreed.
What would you say if someone comes to you and they tell you that I'm not really sure if my vote matters or not, and just one vote will not really affect anything?
Oh my gosh, I would tell them they're wrong. So we have a lot of recent examples. So in the 2022 election, there was a state house race in New Hampshire where the number of votes was an exact tie. There were at least 2 races at the state level in that same year where there was a winner and a loser based on only 1 vote. Those are on the state level, which are smaller races, granted. But
Yes.
by the same token, there was a federal congressional race where the difference between the winner and the loser was only 600 votes.
Mhm.
So when we talked about how important these local races are,
Yes.
that right there, your 1 vote literally can make a difference. When you talk about you as a member of the community, and even if you are not in a very densely populated Hindu community, you can actually sway a congressional election.
Yes.
And when we start talking about our Hindu family throughout the United States,
Mhm.
that's a tremendous amount of power. And if we want to become more powerful politically, it means exercising that power,
Yes.
not just on an individual level, but learning how to do it on a community level also.
I think education on United States politics is something that our community lacks. We do not have enough knowledge about how the system works. There could be various reasons why people don't know. One could be they come from their homeland. They're so, as you said, your father may be very much aware of the Indian politics. You may not because you haven't lived. And another reason why people are not educated about hair is because they're just so busy making a life here that
Sure.
these concerns don't come.
Certainly.
But we do have to educate people. So if someone would ask you what are some resources I could go to, start understanding before I start voting, let me understand how the system works. So what are some resources according to you that someone could go?
So I don't like suggesting to go to the internet and just read, because who's going to do that really? I think that the best thing to do is go and do something though. So at the local level, every county has a Republican Party and a Democratic Party. Every level has city council meetings, and you can sit in on any of these meetings. And at these meetings, there are people who really love this stuff, and there will be no shortage of people who are willing to tell you what they think about that process. Granted, politics in the United States has become pretty fractured.
Yes.
So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to listen to both sides and make some decisions for yourself. But I think that's the most fun way to do that, is to go to places where you're a little bit uncomfortable, where you don't necessarily know people. I think that if you're going to places where there are not a lot of other Hindu Americans, I think you've not only done yourself a service by making yourself more educated, but you've also elevated the status of the Hindu American community by showing other people that we're interested, we're ready to be involved. So maybe there's a way to satisfy multiple goals with one simple action though.
And when you go to these meetings, you actually hear that what the person in front of you is bringing on table. You get to know their thoughts, and sometimes we have just these presumptions that, oh, maybe this person, this individual is like this and he probably is just thinking this way, or the party he's from is thinking this way. But when we go and we hear out, we actually see that maybe we're wrong, or maybe we're correct, or maybe now we have more clarity on who should we choose.
What's kind of interesting is, yes, we have 2 big parties, but not all the people in any given party are thinking exactly alike. So kind of learning and seeing where there are differences in the thought processes of the various parts of each party, kind of seeing what fits, gels with your own Hindu identity, I think is important as well.
Absolutely.
No one's asking us to change how we're thinking. I think it's a matter of bringing our thinking into that American political system though.
Yes, definitely. And learning how to voice our opinions or participate.
Absolutely.
So beyond voting, what are some small steps but impactful steps that every day people can take to uplift our democracy and the community?
Absolutely. So what I think becomes important is, because there's an election only once a year, and there really is an election every year, there'll be for different levels of government.
Yes.
But politicians don't necessarily hear from their constituents or everyday citizens, except for that particular election. So for that reason, I think what becomes important is to make it a point to send an email, to put in a phone call to any of these elected officials at various levels of government
Yes.
to let them know what you're thinking, though,
Mhm.
whether you agree with them or disagree with them.
Mhm.
And doing that, and then asking your family, your friends, your neighbors to do the same thing.
Yes.
And at the same time, identifying who you are, from which community you come from, that becomes really, really important to know for the politician that they're being watched and carefully analyzed and regarded.
Yes.
And it shows them that there are people from that particular community who are doing so at the same time, and perhaps they should really be paying attention to what that community is thinking, wanting, and might be able to do for that politician out in the future as well.
Yes, definitely. I think I'm not someone who likes politics too much, but I am someone who keeps myself aware time to time about it, because when I talk about the quality of life that I need or resources I need, I think it's not the federal that will help me, it's my local, my county elected officials or my city elected officials who can help me directly. So I'm like, I need to be very careful with who I choose. And especially, as you said, Georgia is a very strong state in terms of politics. I think every time we are a swing state when federal elections come in. So we really have to be very careful of who we choose, but also push ourselves to go and vote. I am from Savani, and when we were looking at the stats, how many Indian community or American Hindus that turns up, and it's very less. I think we are one of the growing communities, and definitely in a decent number. But when it comes to civic duty, we tend to be really low and not be there.
Well, looking in more optimistically, we have a lot of room for improvement, though.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as maybe as the youth is getting more involved, they want to come and participate. But it's just sometimes they feel like, as you they think their voice will not be heard, their vote doesn't matter, or they don't like anybody, so then they think maybe next time. But maybe you can try this time only and keep voting every time.
And I think you also have to remember, especially for our youth, I'm only going to be on this planet for 50 years. I think you have a good 80 or 90 ahead of you. So you have a lot more at stake at how everything shakes out for us here in the United States than I do.
Yeah, 80, 90 years sounds like a lot. I'm already tired.
Fair enough, fair enough.
But in Hindu Dharma, we talk about seva, service, as a responsibility and not a choice. You're supposed to do service. It's like your duty. If you had to frame voting and civic duty as a form of seva, how would you explain that to a young teenager or someone who is especially off from college?
So I think I would point them to when they were much younger. So when they were a toddler, it was the responsibility of his or her parents to offer some guidance, offer some rules, make sure the rules are fair. I think that's what we're doing. When we are actually voting, we're actually putting people in place who are going to put fair rules for others and for us as well. Mm-hmm. And what would we do if we didn't have those people? We certainly know that we as a community, as a larger community, are not going to do well without rules. So making sure that we have good people in charge really benefits us.
I think we had a great conversation on the importance of civic duty. And what I want to let the audience know is that it doesn't really matter who will win or who will lose. What matters is that, are you doing your duty? Are you actually showing up and giving your vote? Your vote is your voice, and that's the only way you can uplift a democracy. If you don't participate, then you can't help or make any changes. If you want to make the changes, you have to just give one vote, and that has very big power. It can change everything, and I think everyone hopefully should be inspired, should be a little bit moved that yes, I need to be more aware of my country, more aware of how the system functions, and participate more in this whole process.
And not only that, what if you could say you're not only benefiting yourself, but by you voting and the rest of your Hindu community voting, you're also increasing Hindu political power, which is very important for our community in the long run.
Yes, very, very important. And I think we definitely lag behind, so we have to do it. But today's talk, I'll end here. Make sure, as I said, your vote is your voice. And if you want your voice to reach to up, you have to participate. So till then, make sure that you're aware about your local elected officials. You know who is your mayor, you know who is when is your city council meeting happening. Until then, namaste, and let's keep talking.